Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a focused learner trying to figure out how animal protection laws actually work on the ground, you're in exactly the right spot. Today, we're diving into a super fascinating, kind of hidden corner of the Indian justice system. We're going to zero in on the incredibly vital investigative role of jurisdictional veterinary officers, or JVOs. These folks are essentially the ultimate medical detectives and guardians of animal welfare, turning physical evidence into real legal action. So let's just get right into it.
It's a pretty heavy question, isn't it? Who actually speaks for the voiceless when crimes are committed against animals? I mean, unlike human victims, animals literally can't take the stand. They can't point a finger at their abusers or tell us what happened. And that is exactly where the veterinarian steps in. They become this crucial medical detective. They're the ones tasked with interpreting the silent evidence of trauma and, presenting it in a way that stands up in a court of law.
To really set the stakes here, just look at this quote from the Minister of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying. It perfectly hits the nail on the head. Veterinary officers are right there at the intersection of animal health, welfare, and legal enforcement. They aren't just out there healing, they're actively enforcing. They operate right where veterinary science collides with India's legal frameworks, like the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act.
All right, Section 1, Healers and Law Enforcers.
To completely reframe how we think about our local vet, we've got to ground ourselves in the legal framework first. A JVO does way more than just routine checkups. When a crime goes down, they become full-on forensic investigators. Under the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act and the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita of 2023, the definitions are super specific. An animal is literally any living creature other than a human being. Simple enough? But here's the real kicker about the owner. The law says an owner isn't just the person with the receipt of purchase. It includes anyone with temporary possession or custody of the animal, which means legal accountability is incredibly tight.
Seeing these professionals in action, it becomes crystal clear that this is about a lot more than just bandaging a paw. These JVOs are applying complex veterinary forensics. We're talking toxicology, pathology, and intense physical exams. They're meticulously gathering physical evidence, documenting the exact nature of injuries, and prepping for expert testimony. Honestly, their medical report is usually the make-or-break piece of evidence in an animal cruelty prosecution.
Moving on to Section 2, Investigating Animal Cruelty Cases.
So what actually goes down when the police seize an abused animal? Well, a really strict, step-by-step, standard operating procedure kicks into gear the second law enforcement asks a JVO for help. As you can see mapped out here, there's absolutely no guesswork involved. The whole process is dictated entirely by the animal's physical state the moment it's seized.
The flowchart basically splits into 3 distinct paths. First up, if the animal is alive, the JVO inspects it and marks it for identification. But get this, branding is strictly prohibited. They have to use humane methods like microchipping or an ear tag. Path 2, if the animal is alive but mortally wounded, the JVO has to officially certify its condition so a court can permit humane euthanasia and end its suffering. And finally, if the animal has already passed away, the JVO conducts a rigorous post-mortem. In cases where they suspect poisoning, they actually have to seal the viscera, the internal organs, and send the whole shebang off to a forensic lab.
Now, what exactly are these JVOs hunting for? Under Sections 11 and 12 of the PCA Act, certain acts are flat-out classified as cognizable offenses. This obviously covers things like beating or kicking, but it also includes confining animals in tiny cages, keeping them on super short tethers for hours on end, or forcing injured animals to work. A really massive, widespread issue they tackle is the illegal non-therapeutic injection of oxytocin in dairy cows just to force lactation. If police seize a dairy animal under those conditions, a JVO's immediate exam is legally mandatory to prove the abuse.
Let's look at Section 3, Regulating Transport and Slaughter.
A JVO's jurisdiction doesn't just stop at the clinic, it extends right out onto the highways and into the markets, where a lot of unseen cruelty happens during transit. The absolute game changer here is the Fit to Travel certificate. Literally every single animal being transported must have one issued by a vet. And the rules? They're incredibly strict. You absolutely cannot transport an animal that's pregnant, blind, lame, or emaciated. On top of that, there's a strict ban on moving any animal that's given birth in the last 72 hours or a newborn whose navel hasn't fully healed yet. The JVO is the gatekeeper here, stopping that invisible suffering in its tracks.
And then we hit this very specific number, 96. So what's the deal with 96? Well, that is the absolute maximum number of animals a single veterinarian is legally allowed to examine per day at a slaughterhouse.
They cannot be rushed. They're required to issue a detailed ante-mortem certificate before slaughter, making sure the animal isn't pregnant or under 3 months old, and then a post-mortem certificate afterward. Capping it at 96 ensures the JVO actually has the time to properly inspect the animals and uphold the law.
All right, Section 4, Protecting Community and Pet Dogs. Shifting our focus down to the neighborhood level, how do these medical detectives protect our street dogs, or even the puppies you see sitting in pet shop windows? Well, under the Animal Birth Control, or ABC rules of 2023, JVOs have massive oversight. When community dogs are brought in, the vet has to immediately segregate the sick from the healthy. Sterilizations can only happen in properly equipped operation theaters, and crucially, only after a dog has fully recovered from any previous illness. If a dog is suspected of having rabies, a strict 2-member veterinary panel has to examine it. They even heavily regulate the counting and disposal of reproductive organs post-surgery just to prevent fraud. It's incredibly thorough.
And for the dog lovers out there, get ready for some absolute drop-the-mic facts about pet shops and breeders. First off, it is entirely illegal to breed dogs without State Animal Welfare Board registration. None of this backyard breeding stuff. Every single puppy sold has to be microchipped by a vet, and you cannot legally sell a pup under 8 weeks old. As for pet shops, they have to pass a rigorous veterinary inspection. Plus, and I love this one, every pet shop owner has to have a written exercise plan for the puppies, signed and certified by a registered vet. The JVO is there to make sure these aren't just polite suggestions, but hard laws.
Finally, let's jump into Section 5, Ethical Animal Husbandry Practices.
Here, we're looking at that fine line between necessary agricultural practices and prosecutable cruelty. Under the 2023 rules, certain practices are regulated but allowed, things like dehorning or castration. But they have to be done under proper veterinarian supervision with anesthesia and pain relief. And check this out, hot branding is only legally permitted on dead tissue, like a hoof or a horn. On the flip side, we have flat-out prohibited cruelty. Using multiple nose ropes is only ever allowed as an absolute last resort. Elastration in adult cattle, completely banned. And freeze or hot branding on live tissue, no way. That is a direct, prosecutable violation of the law.
So, we've covered a ton of ground today, right? From forensics and transport rules all the way to pet shop laws. These veterinary officers are out there every single day acting as medical detectives for the voiceless. But the reality is they can't be everywhere at once. So I want to leave you with this thought. Now that you actually know the specific laws protecting these animals, the next time you see a transport truck on the highway, or a puppy in a pet shop window, or just a community dog on your street, how are you going to use this knowledge to help enforce those laws? Keep learning, keep your eyes open, and hey, thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.